I think honestly, all the best songwriters, if you think about the great songs, they have a sense of hospitality in them. Even when you're learning kind of just the craft of songwriting, you're learning how to make a listener feel at home in a space. There's certainly time always to break the rules and opportunities to do that, but it's great to know the rules and it's great to know what makes people feel welcome in this space. Can I create a place really for connection to happen? Music's always been that for me.
You're listening to the Ferment Podcast, conversations about worship and transformation. Today's guest is Taylor Leonhardt. Taylor is a worship leader and a singer-songwriter from Raleigh, North Carolina. We've got a special bonus at the end of the interview. Taylor singing her song Diamonds live at the Songs and Stories event in Campbellsville, Kentucky. This episode is brought to you by Monk Drums. Monk Drums is a creative desert venture that strives to combine beauty and business as one heartbeat. Monk Drums' main focus is handcrafted wooden drums that allow us to love, assist, and serve all who accompany us on this path. Use the coupon code FERMENTPOD to get 5% off your Monk Drums order. Find them on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter at Monk Drums, and every Monday look for hashtag Monk Drum Monday. Speaking from personal experience, Monk Drums are wonderfully crafted and they sound amazing. They blend the best traits of both the djembe and the cajon, and I found them to be incredibly versatile in both the live and studio environment. Check them out at monkdrums.com.
This episode is brought to you by our friends at worshipteam.com. Worshipteam.com comes preloaded with over 12,000 songs, with new songs being added all the time. Hillsong, Bethel, Vineyard, Six Steps, Jesus Culture, just to name a few. Service building with Worship Team is a snap, and all the songs are completely legal and licensed. You can also find them on social media, Facebook at worshipteam.com, Twitter at worshipteam, Instagram at worshipteam_WT. Visit them at worshipteam.com for a free trial today. Complete worship planning with thousands of songs, easy interface, mobile apps, and legal rights for your church. All you need in one place, worshipteam.com.
Hey, what up, everybody? This is Adam on the Ferment Podcast. I am in my office, Campbellsville, Kentucky, and I'm with a new friend, Taylor Leonhardt.
Hey, everyone.
That's right. That's right. I'm stoked you're here.
Yeah, I'm so glad to be here.
Yeah, Taylor, you know, I have not known your music super long, maybe 2 years.
Yeah.
Mutual friend, Andy Squires. Shout out to Andy.
Shout out.
Andy turned me on to your music, and I just want to tell you, I want to do this up front right here. I think you're awesome.
Oh, thank you.
I just think you're awesome. I listened to your record, River House.
Yes.
And it is so stinking good. And I just want to tell everybody who's listening right now, you probably don't know maybe this record, you need to go check it out.
Man, that means a lot.
That's my commercial.
I feel like you've probably heard a lot of music, so.
I have heard a lot of music. Well, here's what's interesting. I have a similar reaction to you emotionally that there's a couple other female artists that bring something out of me. And there's something in your vocal in particular for me. And I'm just very emotionally vulnerable to it, you know?
Yeah.
And I'm not typically someone who's super emotionally vulnerable in that way. I'm an Enneagram 8.
Totally.
But there's something in what you do, and I just so appreciate it. So,
well, thank you.
High fives.
Thanks so much.
Let's just do this because I think you might be a new person for this audience on the Ferment. Who are you? Where'd you come from? And how'd you get here? And and by here I mean, how'd you get to be a songwriter?
Yeah, fair question. So, I grew up in Texas.
What part?
The Hill Country. So, a town called New Braunfels, a little German town.
Dude, I've been there.
No way.
I was there last fall.
That's incredible. It's a great place.
Yes.
It doesn't feel great when you're 15, but really it's one of my favorite spots in the world. It's where my family still is. So I grew up there and then ended up going to college in South Carolina, sort of landed in Raleigh, North Carolina. That's where I still live now. So I've sort of got this grew up in Texas, but I've spent about 8 years, in North Carolina land. And
What'd you study?
I studied psychology. I thought I would go into social work or be a counselor or something like that.
All right, so you're a merciful person.
Oh, well, maybe. I hope so.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got those mercy things on the surface. Yeah, so did you grow up in a musical family though?
I didn't. Well, my dad loves music, and he had the same guitar in his closet that he had in college, probably with the same strings on it too. I mean, it
Yeah.
was such a piece of junk, but he would pull it down, a couple nights a week and play the 4 songs he knew how to play. And one of those was "Take It Easy" by the Eagles.
Okay.
Or he played Creedence Clearwater Revival or something like that. And I just kind of grew up, like I'd always just sit, and listen to him play. And then one day it just struck me that I could play, that I could just
How old were you when
ask
that
him.
little revelation popped into your brain?
Probably 11 years old.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, 11 or 12. So it took a while. And I was always singing and stuff and into music as a kid. But something just struck me like, oh, I should just ask him to show me how to do that.
Were you a performer as a kid?
Were
you like, hey, I'm here?
A little bit. I think I've always had some just a little insecurity enough to kind of keep me from really being, and I was kind of the kid who would do things but never get sort of the upfront role. I'd try out for the play and get like tree number 3, or so I'm like, I'm in the chorus or I'm in the thing, but I'm never like one of the main characters. So it just never, I think music for me was a love. I never saw myself as like, oh, I didn't have big dreams and aspirations to be some sort of, I don't know, just a very upfront.
Yeah, you weren't the kid who, from earliest memories, was dreaming of being a star.
No, not at all.
But you just enjoyed sort of that whole world, and you were in it a little bit. Okay. So you start playing music because your dad has a guitar out and he's playing the Eagles.
Right.
Did you learn playing the Eagles?
That was probably one of the first songs, just like G chord. I learned how to play that song. And then he kind of taught me the other ones he knew. And then from there, I was just really left to my own, trying to figure it out. So we did have the internet then. I mean, this is probably like early 2000s. So
yeah,
I was really into Sarah McLachlan.
Yes.
And honestly, I
Lilith Fair.
Still am. So a lot of those.
Did you ever go to Lilith Fair?
I never went.
Okay.
I never got to actually go. But
you're not old enough.
Yeah. I was pretty young when that was going on, but a lot of those women really inspired me. And there was something about Sarah McLachlan, and I would just play her, I'd play her CD and then just look up the chords, or try to figure them out. And that's kind of how I really learned how to play. And I always say it's just the one thing I really never put down. Like once I picked up a guitar, it just felt so natural and right. So I just kind of kept going.
When did you start writing music?
Yeah, I think I tried in high school. High school is when I started discovering really songwriters and people who were saying things in a way that moved me and compelled me. So I tried to do that a little bit. And as most people, will tell you, my early attempts at that were not great.
Yeah.
There's this quote I really love, or Ira Glass from This American Life talks about when you're a creative and you kind of have great taste, and so you know what songs are supposed to sound like, but then you try your thing, and it's so far, the gulf is so far between what you can do and what you see other people doing. So it took me a while to kind of just get past that, and I just felt like, I'm not very good at this. But there was a specific time in college, one of my best friends in the world, her parents split up, and I just found myself, I was very close with her and with them, and I found myself just wanting to respond and not feeling like I really had the words to do that. And so I wrote about it and kind of wrote a song for my friend. And it felt like tapping into something really important that I'd sort of found a way to communicate.
Were you proud of that song when you were finished?
I was.
Yeah.
I was proud. It was the first song I wrote that I thought, this feels special. And it feels like I was able to kind of...
was that the first time you maybe emotionally sunk your teeth into a feeling or an idea?
Yeah, I think it was the first time I wasn't really trying to imitate anyone. You know, a lot of my early songs, I think whoever I was listening to, I'll try to write a song like that. Or, you know, I'm in youth group, I should probably write a Jesus song. So I love you, Jesus kind of thing, which is great. And I think it all got me there. But that was the first moment that I just thought, what is it that I want to say? And wrote a song like that. And it didn't sound like, I mean, I'm sure it sounds like something, but to me, I wasn't trying to copy anyone.
Yeah, it's interesting how sometimes we get those moments where maybe the moment is so fraught with emotion, or we're not really responding or trying to make something for. I don't know what I'm trying to say here. I just know that sometimes we encounter these places where we kind of get knocked off of our game, like emotionally or something, like maybe a close friend's parents split up, that would do that. And then all of a sudden we're kind of in a new space and we don't feel the need to be, I'm using air quotes here, successful, or to write something, again, air quotes, for the market.
Right.
And then it creates a space for you to be a more true version of yourself.
Yeah. And there was something sweet really about those early days when I was writing songs, because I wasn't doing it for anyone else really. If I would write a song for a person, maybe I would share it with them. But there wasn't a sense in which I was trying to make it. I wasn't doing, I wasn't playing gigs really in coffee shops. Every once in a while I'd do an open mic or something, but it just wasn't an aspiration. And I didn't really see a pathway in which music would be kind of something that would kind of take over my life. So I love thinking about those songs because they just came from this place of, I want to say, I'm feeling something, I want to say something. So there's a something very pure, I think. In that.
And I just love the idea that you can still remember the first song you were like kind of proud of. Anyway, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, if you don't mind me asking, how old are you?
I'm 31.
Okay.
Yeah.
Great. So you're 31 now.
Yes.
When did you go, okay, I'm going to be a songwriter?
Yeah. I feel like it took me a long time, probably because I meet people all the time who are 22 and know they're a songwriter. And I meet 19-year-olds who know. Every summer I work at this high school arts camp, actually in Kentucky. It's a great state. It's down, what is it called? It's near Scottsville.
Really?
Is where we have it.
Okay.
It's a great little camp called Masterpiece. And I teach songwriting there with a friend of mine. And I get to meet these kids who know they're 14, they're 17. They know they're songwriters. And I'm jealous in a way of just that. I wish I had really understood that about myself earlier. So it just kind of took me a while. Even though I wrote that song in college, I would kind of occasionally write. I very much didn't see that as part of my core identity. And I think I was maybe, I was asleep to that a little bit in a sense in myself. And so it took me trying several other career paths. I mentioned the social work thing. So I worked at a nonprofit for a while. And then I thought, this is, the whole millennial thing. We're all trying to figure out what we're supposed to do. But I worked for a nonprofit for a while and I thought, this isn't it. And so I quit that job and started grad school to be an elementary school teacher. And I thought, okay, this is going to be this is the thing I was made to do. And I quickly, even in the middle of school, I knew that probably I was wrong. And I had this moment where I had been leading worship at church a little bit. And a family from my church invited me to do a house concert. And I didn't even know what that was. But they said, hey, we know that you've written some songs. We'd love for you to come play them. And I think it was that night I clumsily put together that I'd never really done that before. I'd sang cover songs before at a restaurant or something. And I'd shared a song I've written at different churches and stuff. But this was the first time I was like, oh, people are coming they're coming to hear me. And I was scared out of my mind, and I put together the set list, had no idea how to do that, so it was way too long. I played way too many songs because I just kind of took everything I'd ever written and put it down. But there was something that happened that night that it's forever marked in my mind as just, I kind of just knew, you know, I felt like for the first time I knew, I don't know how to put it. If it was, I knew what I was supposed to do, or I kind of even deeper, I just knew who I was. I knew that space for me, not just writing songs, but sharing them with people and connecting with them that way is something that I really God just kind of put a big exclamation mark, I think, on that night. And so that was when I started saying, okay, I'm a songwriter. And it started out more like, hey, I think I might like want to be a songwriter and stuff. And then I learned how to
We try these
that
identities on, don't we?
Yeah.
Yeah, we it's almost like when you try on a shirt or a pair of shoes. It's like, does this fit?
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's funny because you think, I was just talking to someone about this today, you think that to say that, you feel like you have to have earned that. You feel like you have to have, you need something to show for it. Well, if you're like, show me, where's your album?
record?
Where's your
hit?
So I feel like I hadn't earned my spot yet. And I think that I could never have gotten there on my own, but I feel like God really sent some people into my life to teach me. You grow into it, you know, he puts the sort of crown on your head and you kind of rise up to meet it. And I feel like that's sort of what happened.
That's a great image.
To me.
Yeah. And so was worship a part of this story as well?
Yeah. In fact, I actually have vineyard ties. The first kind of church that I went to of my own, you know, volition in high school and kind of right after college was this vineyard church in New Braunfels, Texas. And they were the first ones who really gave me, you know, I remember talking to my pastor down there, Scott, and he's like, hey, you know, I had just graduated school. It was 2009. The economy had crashed. I couldn't find any jobs. I had no idea really what I even wanted to do. And I was considering moving back home for a little bit. And Scott said, hey, we're going to do this worship internship thing. We just think you'd be great for that. And I thought, oh, well, you know, I've like never really done that before. I mean, I'd kind of been on the worship team. It's like, I've never led worship. And he's like, well, that's great. That's what the internship is for.
That's what we're going to do.
Yeah. So that church really was such a sweet home to me and kind of where I feel like I got my sea legs, if you will, just for even music, and wrote a lot of songs in that period. And so there's always been this weird marriage in my life between where, even though I would say there's a distinction between, you know, leading worship, how I lead worship, and then these songs that I write, in some ways also they really inform each other. And they both have spoken pretty deeply into one another.
Well, I think this is what's sort of interesting, because you're right. I actually do agree with you. Leading worship or the worship space actually does inform songwriting in a very cool way. I think there's something about leading worship that, especially if you're a decent worship leader, in order to be a decent worship leader, you actually need to lead with your eyes open.
Yes.
And you need to connect with people and pay attention to the room. You used this word this morning during your panel time. You used the word hospitality to sort of describe your calling and what it means to be a songwriter. And like that perfectly applies to worship leadership as well. It's like, well, of course, we're in this room together. And I can just see how that sort of like ties back, you know?
Yeah.
Because I know even as a songwriter myself that my worship leading has really informed that over the years, because I kind of think pastorally about songs sometimes, or the people component is never out of my mind. And maybe it should be, but it just isn't.
Yeah.
You know?
I think honestly, all the best songwriters really, or if you think about the great songs, they do that. You know, they have a sense of hospitality in them. Even when you're learning kind of just the craft of songwriting, you're learning how to make a listener feel at home in a space. And, you know, I don't think it's wrong to do that. There's certainly time always to break the rules and opportunities to do that. But it's great to know the rules, and it's great to know what makes people feel welcome in this space. And I think that as a worship leader, well, really, I think as a songwriter, especially young songwriters I meet, sometimes they want to they want to express themselves. They're like, I just
have something to say.
I have something to say and I want to say it. I think that's great. But to kind of think beyond that, to think, can I create a place really for connection to happen? And maybe that's connection between you and the listener. Maybe that's connection between a listener and God. Or maybe that's like for people, I think a place for people to meet each other. But music's always been that for me. And so it's kind of fun when I realized that those two things, can exist together.
Yeah. But you're still a worship leader, right?
I'm still a worship leader. Yeah.
Okay. What kind of church do you lead worship at?
I lead worship at a church. It's called Church on Morgan. It's kind of a church plant or a partner church with the United Methodist.
Yeah.
In Raleigh. It's downtown. It's kind of...
Raleigh is a cool town, by the way.
Yeah.
It's surprising. I was there not long ago, and I'm like, I didn't know this was cool.
Raleigh's cool.
Yeah.
Raleigh's kind of surprise cool.
Yeah.
It's like, your cousin that you remember from years ago, like kind of nerd, like, and then all of a sudden you see him again and you're like, wow, actually, like you're pretty.
Yeah, you're all grown up.
Yeah, totally. That's kind of what happened to Raleigh. When no one was looking, it got pretty cool.
Yeah. Okay, so you're leading worship, but you're really pursuing songs.
Yes. I think that, some people do the worship leader thing as just a gig and respect for that. But for me, I think it feels like something that's kind of a part. It's another spoke on the wheel, I guess, of my life. And so I love leading worship. I think to some extent, I'll probably always have some community that I want to be a part of and contribute in that way. It feels natural to me. And and then I've got my songwriter thing too, but I'm really trying to learn like how can those things live together? Sometimes one is going to probably take a little bit more of a front seat and one will not, but I'm lucky that I've sort of found a church that really believes, I think, in what I do and how I do it, and so they've given me a lot of space.
That's great.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a text thread on my phone that pretty much never stops.
Yeah.
It's one of those friend threads,
Yes.
I think a lot of people have these. And one of the images or metaphors that we always talk about for the last 5 years on this text thread is all of us in this little group have this strong sense that there's an aspect of our lives that's brackish waters. So that's the image that keeps coming up.
Yes.
And brackish waters, that's where like a freshwater river runs into a salty ocean.
Right.
And it's that intermingling. And you can actually see it. I don't know if you've ever been to a place where the river ran into the ocean, but you can see the fresh water and the salt water kind of combining. And I hear that even in what you're talking about. There's this sense in which I have this calling to the church, right? Mm-hmm. And then there's this other sense in which I have a calling to songs in maybe the biggest and widest sense possible. That might be faith music, it might be church music, it might be worship music, or maybe it's something else, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and so even while you're talking, I'm getting this image of brackish waters or the image of having one foot in two different worlds.
Yes, I really like that. And more, I think I just want people to realize that those worlds can come together.
Yeah, they can.
Because for so many people, I think their faith is so disconnected from their ordinary life. And it's for God is for Sunday. And then everything else is for the rest of the week. And, I've been radically transformed by this idea of the kingdom of God kind of being about every moment and in everything. And so, oh, you mean I can write, a song about my brother, or I can write a song about
my friend's
breakup,
parents,
or I can write this song.
Yeah.
And then actually, like, there's something of that. There's something of the kingdom even in all of those conversations that we want to have. And sometimes the most obvious and plain things in our lives really are begging to sort of be explored. And so
Yeah, I just love that. You're right. Those things can come together.
yeah,
And in nature, they actually do. You know,
Right.
they can exist. That's a
Right.
real phenomenon. And
yeah,
the oceans are filled with rivers that run into them, you know? And
right. And
maybe-
for some reason in worship music, we've decided here's the very shallow bank of words that we're going to draw from, and the phrases that work, and
Yes.
And so I think actually lately I've just been moved by, in a worshipful way, whether I'm at church or not, by these really specific, descriptive kind of songs. So I'm constantly kind of trying to go, can we do that? Can we bring the way we would write a song over here in the Americana or folk space or whatever that is, into the church? Like, can we kind of sing lots of different songs here? And can they feel different? Do they always have to feel like Four on the Floor, the bridge, like down bridge, up bridge, whatever? Like, I just think
octave up bridge.
Octave up bridge,
Yeah,
right?
come
Which
on,
I'm terrible
come on,
at every
come on.
time. There's only one key I can even
Down
do
bridge,
that in.
octave up bridge. Come
Octave
on,
up
Taylor.
bridge. I know.
Your
See,
worship
honestly-
leading is going to get so much better now.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Great. Yeah. So I can put that on my resume now.
Yes, octave up. I've
bridge.
got it.
Got it. So I think it's kind of fun. It's fun to explore those spaces. And I think, it was probably Andy Squires who taught me, you're going to be tempted to want to sing the song that people want, but you got to sing the song that people need. And I think that's true in both arenas. I think that's true for me in the church, and it's true for me as a songwriter
I love that.
outside the walls.
A moment ago, you said, can we move beyond the shallow bank of words that's allowed in the church, or like kind of allowed in the worship space?
Right.
How have you endeavored to like reach out beyond and find some other words or phrases?
Right. Well, I think just sometimes for me, I don't even mean, I am not a controversial person. I don't think I'm not one of those people. I'm just not. Like,
Yeah.
I'm not one of those people I'm gonna say something that's gonna rock the boat. That's not really what I mean. I'm sure there are people who are called to do that. I just more mean, I just want to talk to God in my normal voice. There's this kid's Bible that I love called the Jesus Storybook Bible.
Yeah, I've seen
by
that.
Sally
It's great.
Lloyd Jones. It's great, but there's the way that she writes about when Jesus is teaching his disciples to pray. So it's a passage about the Lord's Prayer. But before that, he says, just use your normal voice. Just like, you don't need a special prayer voice. Just use the words you would talk to a friend. And I think that's kind of what I keep coming back to, is that, yes, we need to push into these other areas and sometimes say things that are hard to say. But also, I think we just need language that feels familiar and common, because I think a lot of people walk into church and go, to be honest, I don't know what that word means. I don't know that story. I don't know. Put this in a context I can understand. And, if I'm just showing up, if most of my life is spent outside of the church and it's spent going to work or being with my family or whatever it is that you do, why don't we kind of use that? I just feel like we speak in abstraction a lot, and in really religious words, or words that have a lot of baggage for people, or just words that feel kind of hard they're not very earthy.
Yeah.
So I just think, let's reinvent some new ways. Let's find some new ways to kind of.
Are there any specific words that feel really tired and worn out to you? Do you have a list that's banned from yourself?
I don't know.
But you're not controversial, so maybe we shouldn't do that, right?
I know I'm probably like, oh gosh, my Enneagram 2 self is like, I don't want to offend anyone who's used
That's right.
any of these words.
That's
so
right.
I do have that list, but
Yeah.
it's hard to say.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, what about this, Taylor?
And here's what I'd say too, maybe to
Yeah.
that. You can use whatever word you want. I think you just need to really mean it, and you need to back it up with, like, tell me what that is. If you're going to use the word breakthrough, that's great. I recently wrote a song with that word in it, and I kind of thought, okay, here I am. I'm using the word breakthrough. I don't say that a lot, but I'm using it.
Yes,
but
I
it
get
felt
it.
right. It felt like I could back up why it felt like the right thing. So I guess maybe
You did the work.
You did the work.
You did
I
the
just
work on the
mean
front
don't
end.
draw. I think sometimes we kind of just grab in this, or we draw from this little grab bag of like, well, I need a verse. Like, here we go, grace.
Yeah.
Here or whatever it is.
Face.
And the thing is that we've in a sense cheapened these words that are actually really rich. And so I just think it's our job, the artists, the songwriters, to kind of let's make these mean something again. Let's spell them out for people, or like paint me a picture. When's the last time worship songs, used
Show me.
show me instead of tell me that whole thing? So.
Yeah. Hey, you used something this morning in our little panel discussion.
Yeah.
For those who are listening, we're at a little event at my church, and we had kind of a panel discussion this morning. And we were talking about, for a brief moment, about the creative process. And you said something I just loved. You talked about paying attention as a songwriter and the idea of a collector.
Yes.
And that's real important, because I asked you this morning about sustaining creativity. Like, how do you sustain creativity? How do you be a person who doesn't just write 1 or 2 songs a year, but maybe someone who writes 30, 40, 50 songs a year?
Totally.
And you talked about collecting and paying attention. Can you just riff on that for a few minutes for us? Because I think this could be helpful for people.
Yeah. Well, I was at the beach a few weeks ago, and I got up early and just kind of was sitting and watching the sun kind of come up. I don't do that a lot, but I was up early enough to catch the sunrise that day. And I saw this woman, and I guess a lot of people do this. They get up early and go look for all the shells that kind of get washed up on the shore. And she's just looking. And I realized, that's just not me. I don't have an eye for necessarily seashells. So I could take a walk and just not see all these things. But I think as an artist, what I've learned is that I've had to learn how to be a collector. So just to have eyes to pick out really special things that other people maybe don't see, and I think everybody has the capacity to do that. But artists really, especially, I think, a lot of times for visual artists or photographers, it's the way they see light. It's the way they have this ability to see the way the light comes in the room. For me, it's phrases and pictures and kind of...
And people say amazing things all the time.
People say amazing things and they don't even notice. And so learning to kind of mine your everyday life for gold, really, I think it's all there.
Here's a perfect example of this. This is many years ago. In a past life, I worked at a garden center, and I ran landscape crews. Mm-hmm. And it was a cold Kentucky winter day. We were outside. And it was like one of those gray, just dreary kind of things. And I was talking to this guy who worked with me. And he said this phrase to me, and it's so vivid. He said, Adam, in Kentucky, it ain't the cold that kills you, it's the never-ending gray.
Wow.
Right? And as soon as he said it, I was like, that's a song.
Yeah.
And so I've got this song, and the first verse, the opening line is, it ain't the cold that kills you, it's the never-ending gray.
Right.
And that's just, but it's to your point, like, we could be collectors.
Right.
Right? This stuff is around us all the time.
Yeah. I think if you're not walking around with your eyes open and your ears open and even just your physical sense, if you're, the more that you can do that and kind of collect these things, you're not always going to be able to right that moment, get to your guitar or your piano and kind of pound the song out, but you can collect it. I always try to write things down, or I'm constantly talking into my phone, and then I just return to those things. And what's really cool, I think, is, maybe you hear the thing about the never-ending gray, and you bring that home, and you realize that all these other things that you've been picking up along the way, actually God is speaking this thing.
Yeah, it's telling that story.
He's weaving a thread together. So in a sense, you're just trying to pick up little clues or pieces of things that it feels almost like the Spirit is leaving for you.
That's right.
In a sense.
Here's what I hear in what you're saying. I hear an approach to songwriting that's maybe a touch more humble. And
That's well, I hope so.
no, it is. Because what I hear in what you're saying is, even in the idea of paying attention or collecting, I hear the idea of it's humble in the sense that it's not just up to me to be this generative thing. I'm not the ultimate generator, right?
Yeah.
I'm looking, I'm receiving. It's like almost imagine hands with palms up, right?
Yes.
And there's stuff all around me that wants to come into my, it's like, what is God? What is today putting into my hands?
Right.
And then I'm going to do something with it.
Right. And then to be someone who sees the thread, those sort of threads that feel invisible, I think, to a lot of people, and to say it in a way that they can grab onto. And I think there's a nature to songwriting too, in which you're a translator, and you're taking these weird, I get weird idea. I'm sure a lot of people do out there, and just like, how do I translate that like into something very beautiful or something very interesting or whatever it is.
How long does it take you to write a song?
Sometimes it's quick. Some of my favorite songs have come in maybe an hour or two, but these days I will say it's taking longer. I think I'm getting, in some sense, the songs are better, but they're just, they're coming a little bit slower, and I'm spending more time editing and letting it develop and kind of marinate a little bit.
Yeah.
I used to just write a song and think, well, it's done, and, never come back to it. So I'm kind of learning how to go, does this need to be something more? Did I say it as well as I know I can?
Well, John Mark even said something this morning.
Yeah.
I thought was really great. Interestingly enough, I think he was quoting Stephen King.
Yes.
About starting a creative endeavor with the door closed, but editing a creative endeavor with the door open.
Yes.
Right? So that it kind of speaks to that freedom of starting a song, letting it be whatever you want it to be, letting it happen.
Yeah.
But then opening the door to maybe other people and other opinions for that editing or that second round.
Sometimes it just needs to breathe too. Sometimes
just get away from it.
You hit a wall, and it's the best thing you can do is go for a walk or just go for a drive or something. Like, get out of that physical space, even like the room that you're sitting in, and just do something different, And normally that helps a lot to come back.
Are you the kind of person who's like banging on one song at a time, or do you have 6 songs in process?
I'm a one song at a time kind of gal. That's just, it's hard for me. And I need to feel really emotionally invested in it. So I've just got to really enter in.
Do you mean care?
Yeah.
Yeah, like you gotta.
I've got to really care. And generally, like, I kind of want, no matter what kind of tears they are, I want to like cry a little bit. Like, that sounds really like.
That sounds like an Enneagram 4.
It totally does.
But
which
no, I
I'm
get
not.
it. I get it. I get it.
I want, really what I mean is, I want it to move me.
Yes.
So I just have to, it's hard to kind of do that in a lot of different places. So, I've got this one chorus right now that it's a song that's taken a while, but every time I sing the chorus, I choke up.
You feel it.
It means something to me. And so the verses I've tried with it, I just haven't quite gotten to that point. So I'm trying to chase that. Yeah.
They don't match.
I'm trying to chase that a little bit and be patient, but
when you were a younger
weird.
songwriter, would you have settled?
Oh, totally. I just would have said, well, these verses work. The chorus is better.
The chorus is amazing.
Yeah. But now I'm constantly trying to challenge myself now. It's like, what if could I write a verse that's better than this chorus? And I think it's a good aim. It's good, really, I think, to, call yourself to greatness. And then learn when it is good.
Yeah.
And you
We're
can
there.
kind of,
I can let this go.
Right.
Yeah.
And you just, I don't know, you develop an instinct for when that is, I guess.
I think you do. Taylor, I hate that we need to shut this down.
Yeah.
We're about to go to do another little meeting. That stinks. This is so good. You've shared so much gold in just a short time.
Thank you.
listen, you have to come back on my podcast
Oh,
because
I love it.
we didn't even get started good.
I know. That was just the preamble.
That's the opening salvo.
Yeah.
All right. Here's the thing, though. Everybody who comes on my podcast, we end them all the same. I ask everybody this question. So, would you tell all of us a time when you experienced great joy?
Oh, what a great question to be asked. Yeah, I think the thing that just jumps out in my mind, it was you asked me how old I was. I'm 31. So on my 30th birthday, I invited my best friends to come to this cabin in the mountains of North Carolina with me. And we just had the best day. We climbed on this river and we're climbing over all these rocks. We were like skipping rocks and stuff. And I felt like I had so much anxiety and fear about turning 30. And then I just spent the whole day being a kid, basically. And I feel like the way that I laughed that day and the way that I just enjoyed the people I was with, I thought, this is how I want to spend the rest of my life. So
yeah, it was kind of a little mini awakening there that the child isn't gone.
The child isn't gone. In some ways, I think she's just coming out. So
that's great.
Yeah.
Beautiful story. By the way, I totally resonate with that. I thought I was gonna have like an existential crisis turning 40, you know? Only to discover it's great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in some ways you can let go of there's a great G.K. Chesterton quote that talking about God, how like a child, God never grows tired of things. Maybe he makes daisies the same every time because he's just never grown tired of that. And the end of that quote, it kind of finishes, we have sinned and grown old, and our Father is younger than we. And so I just think, I'm on that path. I'd like to grow young. So
that's great.
Yeah.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks for having me.
We're not gonna be able to do better than that. High fives. Hey, listen, if you are listening to this podcast and you don't know Taylor's music, please go check it out. You can find her any place you find music, and definitely check out her record, River House, and she'll have something new coming when?
Well, soonish.
Ish.
Yeah, it's coming. It's
Fall?
in the works. I'll have a
Winter?
song coming out early 2020, and then hopefully
A record.
Hopefully so.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, Taylor. High five.
High five.
And now here's Taylor Leonhardt singing Diamonds live from Songs and Stories.
Well, hey, I'm Taylor. Tonight, I want to tell you a little bit of my story, and just kind of how I got here. And I think, I got to talk to Adam earlier. We did a little podcast thing, and it's kind of fun because when I do that, it always makes me think about just how I even got into doing this. And I never really saw myself as a musician or a songwriter. I always loved it, but just wasn't something that I claimed. It was kind of something that I sort of skirted around and felt like it was a little part of my life, but it took me a really long time to wake up to this real desire in me and something that I felt like God made me to do. And, I think even still, because of that, it's still really hard for me to see myself as kind of worthy of having a seat at the table, and all the time, probably every day, just fight these voices that really just want to kind of say, you're not very good at this, or it really doesn't matter, or anything you have to say has been said before. And, a lot of times I think I have a hard time just kind of bringing my full self with me. Even when I'm performing, there's a part of me that wants to kind of put something on for you. And but I think what's been just a medicine for me in my life, when I hear those voices, when I feel like I've got to be someone else other than me, there was this time in my room, and I was feeling like that and feeling like I don't have anything, really to say. And it was one of those moments, they've been so few and far between, but when I really felt like I heard the Lord speak to me. And he said, I had this idea. Like, what if you are here because I had a dream? And I wanted, like the way that you have a dream at night and you wake up, think of like the last really great dream you had. And you kind of want to wake up and tell someone right away before it evaporates, before you forget it. And God said, what if I had a dream and I wanted to tell someone, and that's why you're here? What if we are the dream of God kind of come true? And Brennan Manning puts it this way in his book, The Signature of Jesus. He says, Jesus is the capital W word of God, the full expression of who God is. Everything he wanted to say, given to us. But we are like his little brothers and sisters. And so we're these echoes, and that God really has something that he wants to say to the world. And that's why I'm here. That's why you're here. And so I think that just fights any level of me kind of thinking, well, I've got to come up with something new, or I've got to come up with something profound, or I've got to do the thing that's never been done before, because God says, you're my dream. You started out in my dream, and I'm the one kind of making it come true. So you just get to live inside of this thing I'm already doing. And so this is a song called Diamonds. Shadows can speak louder than anything, and you believe the lies they're saying. You are not an afterthought. Love himself dreamed you up. He dressed you in diamonds, called you his star. You've been hiding all this time with your hands over your eyes. I see you, darling. You have my heart. Not good enough, that's what you tell yourself. Invisible, nobody notices. You are not an afterthought. Love himself dreamed you up. He dressed you in diamonds. He called you his star. Been hiding all this time with your hands over your eyes. I see you, darling. You have my heart. I see you, darling. You're a precious thought hidden in the heart of God. How good it is to know you. You became a word none of us had ever heard. How good it is to know you. How good it is to know you. Walk with me now and learn a different song. The one that I've been singing all along. Oh, 'cause you are not an afterthought. Love himself dreamed
dressed you in diamonds, he called you his star. You've been hiding all this time with your hands over your eyes, and I see you, darling, you have my heart. I see you, darling. You are not an afterthought. Love himself dreamed you up. He dressed you in diamonds. He called you his star. Been hiding all this time with your hands over your eyes, and I see you, darling. You have my heart. 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 You have my heart.
Hi, everyone. This is Melissa Keller, Events Director for Vineyard Worship. If you've been enjoying the podcast, I've got a couple of ways you could really help us. First of all, review the podcast on iTunes or the podcast platform of your choice. This helps more people find us. Also, connect with us on social media, Instagram at The Ferment Podcast and Twitter at FermentCast. Thanks for listening. See you next time.